From when are olives susceptible to contracting tumor? From when they exclude the moisture of the holder, but not the moisture of the porous box. This is according to the words of Rabbi Beit Shammai. Rabbi Shimon says the measure at which moisture renders the olive susceptible is 3 days, and Beis Hillel says when the 3 olives stick to one another. Rabbi Gamliel says when the processing is finished, and the sages say their position has been said, as he said. If he finished harvesting his olives and intends to purchase more, or if he finished purchasing and intends to borrow more, or if there befell him a mourning or a banquet or a compelling situation, and even if a Zas or Zava walked upon them, they are tahor. If tummy beverages fell upon them, only the place in which they came into contact with the olives is tummy, and the moisture that seeps from them is tahor. When the processing is finished, they are susceptible to tumor. If beverages fell upon them, they are tummy. The moisture that seeps from them. Rabbi Eliezer regards it as tahor, while the sages regard it as tamei. Rabbi Shimon says they do not argue about the moisture that seeps from the olives, which is tahor. Concerning what did they argue? Concerning the moisture that comes from the pit, that Rabbi Eliezer regards as tahor, while the coming Rabbi as tamei. Okay.
Okay. Mishna Daled. Hagomer Zesav v'shir kupa achas. Okay, so here's an Am Haaretz who wants to be able to do things properly. He knows he's not certified as a chaver, and he knows that the Kohanim will not trust him in general. But you know, but when an Am Haaretz displays that in general, Am Haaretz is not considered a bad person. He's just considered careless. But we trust him when it comes to things like kodshim, even with truma in these circumstances, as you'll see. He finishes dealing with his olives, so now he's done. So if he has finished pressing his olives, and now he left over one box which he didn't put into the vat, in order so that they would not become mukhshar for tumah. Okay, why? Because he wanted to keep them. He wanted to keep them aside and separate truma from them and give those to a kohen. Okay, yitnena le'nei hakohen. He should put the olives in that box into the vat under the supervision of a kohen, and from thereafter the kohen will look after it. The kohen is watching it, and he can be sure that that the truma that comes out of here is going to be tahor. Okay, this is the word divrei Rabbi Meir. That's how Rabbi Meir says he should do it. Rabbi Yehuda Omer yolich es hamaftach miyad. All that he needs to do, he doesn't have to leave a box behind and put them into the vat in front of the kohen. All he needs to do is at the end of the malacha of pressing the olives, he just needs to lock up the olive press and straight away take the key to the kohen, and he is believed to say that I've just finished pressing my olives and they're still tahor. Okay, and that's and that miyad that we're saying, the Tosefta explains that this is not dafka like that very moment, but he's believed to all of that day he's believed to bring the key to the kohen and say, listen, I've finished with the olives and I've been careful about their tahara. So if it's within the same day, that's all fine. Rabbi Shimon he says even 24 hours. So even for the first 24 hours, even if it goes into the next day, as long as he brings the key over. Okay. All right. So he leaves olives in a machtesha, which is a pestle, right?
A crusher. Was it a crusher?
An olive crusher. Okay, and he's leaving them so that they should soften. Okay, sheyunochim lichtosh. Right, while they're softening, so that they should be easier to crush. So now the liquid that comes out is actually a good thing as far as the owner is concerned. So harei elu mukhsharim. That's that liquid that comes out it wets them, and that is considered lirtzon for the ratzon of the owner, and the mukhshar for tumah. However, if you put them there to leave them in order to salt them, in other words, to eat them, not to make them for oil, but to have them in his salad. Beis Shammai omrim muchsharim, ubeis Hillel omrim einam muchsharim. So Beis Shammai say that this that the liquid that comes out is his ratzon, but the Beis Hillel say no. This is because it actually reduces the flavor of the olives, and therefore it's not beneficial to him, and he's not happy about it. So they're not muksha. Now, what happens if somebody is squeezing olives with his hands, and his hands are tameh? So the first thing that happens is that he's trying to get the oil out. Therefore, he definitely wants it. And as soon as his hands touch the liquid becomes tameh and are matame the olive itself. So there's no two ways about it. This is tameh. Okay. Ha-meniach zeisav begag legargaram. Somebody leaves his olives on the roof in order to dry them out. Afilu hein rum ama, even if they're an ama deep, and for sure there's going to be lots of oil dripping down. Einan mukhsharin, they're not mukhshar because he's put them up there in order to dry them. In other words, the liquid is not what he wants. Now, what if he put them inside his house in order for them to decay there and soften? And then afterwards he's planning to put them up into the roof. Or he put them on the roof in order to soften them, or to how do we translate that? In order to split them in half. So that is something where the liquid is beneficial, and they're moksha patuma. So he put them in the house temporarily because he needed to put up a makeh on his roof, or have put some other kind of preparation on the roof, or until he can put them into a different place. Einan muksharim. So the liquid that comes out of there in that circumstance is that is considered not muksha for tuma, because it was incidental that the oil came out. Okay.
Okay, good. And we are on to
Yes.
Yes. A basilica in a private domain for the Shabbos, but a public domain for Anatuma. Rabbi Yehuda says if he stands at this entrance and sees those who enter and those who leave at the other entrance, it's a private domain for this and for that. But if not, it's a private domain for the Sabbath and a public domain for Tuma. A person is in a private a person. A paron is a private domain for the Sabbath and a public domain for Tuma. Similarly, the sides of the paron, Rabbi Meir says, the sides are a private domain for this and for that. The storefront bench area is a private domain for Shabbos and a public domain for Tuma. A courtyard which the public enters on one side and exits on the other side is a private domain in regard to the laws of Shabbos and a public domain in regard to the laws of Tuma.
Okay.
A potter who put down.
That's it. That was 3. There were 3 short Mishnahs there.
Well, I think so fast. Okay, sorry. Okay. I didn't realize I'm going so fast. Okay. Para. Yud Aleph. Ahab's well and the Pamias are valid. Waters that change and the change was on their own account are valid. A water canal that comes from afar is valid, that provided that he watches that no one interrupts it. Rabbi Yehuda says it has presumption of permissibility. If a shard or some earth fell into a well, it must wait until it becomes clear. These are the words of Rabbi Shmuel, and Rabbi Akiva says he must not wait. Regarding a flask into which minute water fell, Rabbi Elliot says one should sprinkle the mekatos in the flask twice, but they come and disqualify the mekatos. If dew fell into the flask, Rabbi Elliot says he should leave the flask in the sun so that the dew will rise from the flask by itself and come and disqualify the mekatos. The beverages or the juice that fell into the flask, you should pour out the contents and must dry the flask. But if black ink, gum arabic, ferrous sulfate, or anything else that leaves a stain fell into the flask, he should pour out the contents, but he does not need to dry the flask. Okay? And if what does I say? Oh yeah, if shikatsim or ramasim fell into a flask and they burst, or the color of the contents of the flask changed, the mekatos is invalid. As for skipsus, it invalidates the mekatos in any case because it is like a tube. If Shimon and Reb Eliezer Yaakov say if a dira or kina fell down found in the grain, fell into the flask, the mekatos is valid because they did not have moisture in them.
Okay, Tohoros.
Okay, oh. If Tuma is within a wall inside a space that is cubed handbreadth, every story above it becomes Tame, even if there are 10 stories. If an upper story is built over two houses and there is Tuma in the wall between the two houses, it becomes Tame, but all the stories above it remain Tahor. If there is Tuma inside a dike, it penetrates directly upward and downward. If a tombstone is on top of the occluded grave, someone who touches its sides remains Tahor because the Tuma penetrates only upward and downward. But if the place of the tomb contains a cube handbreadth of empty space, one who touches any part of the tombstone becomes tummy because it is treated as a sealed grave. If the huts are leaned against it, they become tummy, and Rabbi Yehuda declares them taho. All the sloping sections of a tent are considered part of the tent. In the case of a tent whose walls slope downward and its upper end is only as wide as a finger, and there is tumah inside the tent, utensils on the slope become tummy. If there is tumah under the slope, utensils inside the tent become tummy. If there is tumor inside a tent, someone who touches the inside of the tent becomes tummy, and for 7 days, where someone who touches the outside of the tent becomes tummy only until evening. If the tumor on the outside of the tent, someone who touches the outside of the tent becomes tummy for 7 days, whereas someone who touches the inside of the tent becomes tummy only until evening. If a half-sized olive piece on the inside and a half-sized olive piece on the outside, someone who touches either side becomes tummy only until evening. If part of the tent is flat on the ground, whether the tumor is beneath the tent or above it, the tumor penetrates upward and downward. If a tent is pitched in the upper story without excess cloth flying flat over the opening between the house and the upper story, Rabbi Yossi says it contains Tohoros Tuma, and Rabbi Shimon says it does not contain Tuma unless it is stretched out the way a tent usually is. If there is a corpse in the house with numerous entrances, all utensils in the entrances become tummy, and if one door is open, it is tummy, and if the others are taho. If it was decided to remove this corpse through one of the doors or through a window 4 handbreadth square, tumah is contained from all the other entrances. Beit Shammai says it must be decided before the person dies, and Beit Hillel says it can be decided even after the person dies. If an entrance was sealed and he decided to open it, Beit Shammai says when he opens 4 handbreadths, it will curtail tumah for the other side entrances. But Beit Hillel says as soon as he begins, to open up. And they both agree that a doorway created for the first time must be opened for 4 handbreadths.
Okay.
Fine. Yeah. There we go. And Menachos. Dalit. Opening offerings are processed in a vessel prepared within the courtyard and are processed out of the vessel prepared outside the courtyard. How so? The length of each of the stay of lechem is 7 handbreadths, and its width 4 handbreadths, and its horns 4 fingers. The length of its lechem upon is 10 handbreadths. Its width 5, and its horns are 7 fingers. If Yehuda says in order that you should not err, Yahazer ben Yaom, it says, and if you shall place upon the table or upon them before me always, that it should have faces. A shulchan is 10 handbreadths long and 5 wide. The lechem is 10. The lechem is 10 handbreadths long and 5 wide. Once you place its length along the width and the shulchan unfold, it's 2.5 handbreadths on each side. Thus, its length filled the entire width of the shulchan. These are the words of Rabbi Yehuda. The Meir says the shulchan 12 long and 6 wide. The left bottom is 10 long and 5 wide. He would place his length along the width of the shulchan and fold 2 handbreadths on each side and leave 2 handbreadths space in between so that the air should flow between them. Avishol says they would place the 2 spoons of frankincense on the lechem upon him. They say to him, does it not already say, and you shall place on the rack pure frankincense? And he said to them, does it not already say, and upon him the tribe of Manasseh? There were 4 props of gold there, branched at the tips, which supported them, 2 for each arrangement. They were 28 rods, each like a hollow reed, 4 for one arrangement, 14 for the other arrangement. Neither the arrangements of the rods or the removal overrides the Shabbos. Rather, he would enter on the eve of Shabbos and remove them and place them along the length of the table. And all utensils which are in the temple were placed with their length parallel to the length of the temple.
Okay.
Okay, and we have Nazir. Base A. If one says, I'm a Nazir and it's an obligation upon me to provide for a Nazir to shave his head, and his friend heard him and said, and it is an obligation upon me to provide for a Nazir to shave his head, they are clever. They provide for each other to shave, and if not, they must provide for each other Nazirim to shave. If he says it is an obligation upon me to provide for the shaving of half a Nazir, and his friend heard him and said, and it is an obligation upon me to provide for the shaving of half a Nazir, this one must provide for the shaving of a complete Nazir, and this one must provide for the shaving of a complete Nazir. These are the words of Rameya. But in the comments say, this one provides half of the sacrifices needed to shave a Nazir, and this one provides half of the sacrifices needed to shave a Nazir. One who says, I'm a Nazir when a son will be born to me, and a son was born to him, he is a Nazir. If a daughter or one of the unknown gender or an androgen or was born to him, he is not a Nazir. If he said, when I shall see that there will be born to me a child, even if there is born to me a daughter or one unknown gender, androgen, he is a Nazir. If his wife lost a baby, why am I going so fast?
Orla.
Okay. Okay, olive. If one plants for a fence or for beams, it is exempt from Orla. Rabbi Yossi says, even if he said the inner side for food and the outer side is a fence, the inner side is liable and the outer is exempt. When our forefathers entered the land and found planted, it was exempt. If they planted, although they had not conquered, it is liable. If one plants for the public, it is liable. Yehuda exempts. If one plants in the public domain, or a non-Jew planted, or if a robber planted, or if one planted on a ship, or a grew of itself, it's liable. It's to Orla. If a tree was uprooted together with a rock, or if a river swept it together with a rock, it could live. If it could live, it is exempt. If not, it's liable, and that the rock was thrown away from its side, or the plow shook it, or it shook it and made it like earth. If it could live, it is exempt, and is not. If not, it is not liable. It is liable. It is liable.
Yeah. Okay. Well,
all right.
Wonderful
Shabbos. Chodesh Tov.
Okay. Chodesh Tov. That's right.
Right. Yeah. 2 days.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Okay. See you Sunday.
Okay. Bye.